DDG episode 164. My name is Dave Hunt, and I'm joined by Michael Swick.
How's it going, Dave? As of yesterday, I thought we weren't going to have much news to talk about, but the last 24 hours, there's been a bunch of stuff. I'm kind of excited. Still
you
kind of
delayed
sleepy.
the podcast because of Nintendo Direct.
Yes.
And it worked in our favor for other stuff.
Yeah, it gave us other news and also the Nintendo Direct. We'll talk about it later. Actually, not too bad of a Direct. So we'll get into that shortly.
Classic Nintendo tease in there that actually irritated Angela. It's pretty funny. All right, so we are Digital Days Gaming. We are a weekly podcast that posts every Thursday morning, 6 a.m. Eastern Time on podcast services. Apparently, we're not on... I can't even think of it as. Somebody asked me the other day what we were on, and I was like, I don't think so. And Pandora, I think it was Pandora.
Yeah, Pandora had a weird setup that I was just like, this ain't worth the use, worth it. I can look back into it if people want me to.
No, I mean, that's like literally the only person that asked me, and then I think she found something else that worked, so she was fine. So she's somebody that plays Destiny with us, and she didn't know that I podcasted. So, until we posted the stuff about the Destiny podcast. That's in there as well, which getting some, relatively positive feedback around that from the people that play Destiny. So that's always good. But yeah, there are links to our website where you can get all of the shows, all 164 plus episodes. There's 164 numbered ones, like I just mentioned, and there's a bunch of other stuff. There's some spoiler cast in there. There's some interviews in there. There's some game preview impressions in there. There's a ton of stuff in there. It's got to be getting near 200 units of content, right, Michael?
I can easily find that out, but yes, I believe you are right.
So there's a ton of stuff that you can check out there. It's not a website. It's just taking you to our podcast host, right? It just takes you to where all of our audio files are held, doesn't it?
Yeah, but there's also links to all of our other stuff on the website.
So you can check that out. You can join Facebook, Discord. I think we got the Discord fixed for the Patreon supporters. I think we figured that out today. So that should help with that. And like our Facebook group, our Discord, Twitter, all that stuff is linked in the show notes for you to check out. If you can leave us a review on the podcast services that you use, that's super helpful to grow the podcast and get some more people listening or watching. And speaking of watching, you can watch us on Twitch, twitch.tv/DigitalDaysGaming, where we stream, we live stream the show every time we record it. This week being Wednesday night at 9 o'clock Eastern Time. So, and if you have your Amazon Prime and your Twitch accounts linked, you get Prime Gaming. Prime Gaming gives you a bunch of free stuff for other games, as well as a free Twitch subscription to the streamer of your choice. Our Twitch subscription numbers are a little lower than normal. I usually don't like to talk about that, but it's a little lower than I'm comfortable with, and I'll take about 80% of that blame, as I'm not streaming enough video game stuff to pop up on your guys' feed when you open Twitch. But if you're listening to this and you have Twitch on your phone, just switch over on your phone at a red light or when you get to work, and just pop into our channel. We don't have to be live for you to subscribe. It does not auto renew. So just please consider, extra 30 seconds out of your day to support us, or follow us. At least follow us on Twitch. That's free. Again, twitch.tv/DigitalDaysGaming. And we're going to jump right into the news.
Yeah, so rolling through the, cancellation train or whatever, we have 2 more games to talk about that are shutting down. So we'll probably be talking about this is the 4th or 5th game in the last 3 weeks that have announced that it's shutting down. But the Knockout City, the dodgeball game that was originally launched by EA, but then broke free from Velan Studios. They announced Season 9, which starts February 28th, will be its last season, and the game will go offline in June. To the studio's credit, they did say that they are going to launch a PC version of the game that will allow you to host your own servers. So they're at least going to go through that. So there will still be online play available for PC players. But Knockout City did pretty well about 3 years ago, 2.5, 3 years ago. It had a peak player count of about 12 million people, but it's
not that old.
It's 2 years. This would have been its 3rd year if it went past June.
Oh, Season 9, 3 months apiece. Okay, yeah. 27 months. Yep. Okay,
yeah.
Little over 2 years old.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they've done crossovers with different IPs, and they seemed relatively healthy, but they've just been kind of bleeding players, and they haven't been able to increase that player base. So they are going to focus on other projects and sunset this game. So this is just yet another free-to-play game going down. I'll jump into the next story, and then we'll just talk about all of this live service stuff as a whole. Crossfire X is shutting down. You might be saying, what's Crossfire X? But this was the game from Smilegate and Remedy, where Smilegate was working on the multiplayer portion, and Remedy was working on a single-player campaign. So the game is already been removed from sale. If you purchased it within the last 2 weeks, this news came out a little late last week, you'll be refunded. And they're actually going to be like wiping the single-player content off servers as well. So they're just shutting everything down. Multiplayer, single player, that's all going down on May 18th. Basically, they just said the game didn't reach their expectations, both the multiplayer and the single player. So that's 2 live games that are going down. This is on top of Rumbleverse last week announcing that they're shutting down, and then of course the Avengers shutting down. It seems right now is the time for studios to, I guess, move their attention to other things as like the fiscal year ends. But Dave, is this a sign of how brutal it is in a free-to-play market, or just the multiplayer market in general, based on how many things are shutting down right now?
You don't have any of this. Well, you do have it on here, so we'll talk about this next. But this is why Microsoft Activision merger needs to go through. Mm-hmm. Like, this is why it needs to go. This is why it needs to happen. These companies cannot self-sustain them, are not self-sustainable without a bankroll or something. Iron Galaxy is a talented studio. Adam Boyes is a talented developer. We've seen some of the stuff he's done with PlayStation. We've seen the things that they're attempting to do. But unfortunately, a battle royale wrestling game, brawler, didn't work. A dodgeball game didn't work. The HyperX game, or if that's whatever it's called, with the Ubisoft space,
Hyperscape.
Hyperscape, over the top, third person shooter battle royale didn't work. Is battle royale dead? No, because Fortnite just destroys everybody. But Fortnite is becoming on its own independent entity, as well as it has the bankroll to take a risk and to lose player count and then go, okay, what are we going to do? And then they do another concert or a live event and they get it all back. So this is why we're hearing conversations about Last of Us 3, and why there's a tie, like this little, everybody's got their panties in a bunch about why if Uncharted is done, or if it's not done, because everybody says, myself included, everybody says they want new, creative, innovative IPs, but then nobody plays them.
Yeah. So. And it's making me think that the market is just smaller than we think, in terms of there can only be a couple juggernauts.
Yeah. There's only so much pie before the pie is empty.
Yeah, and it's not financially sustainable to just accept your small portion of that space. Like, it seems like we hit a point where it's all or nothing. It's like you're either a smash hit and you maintain being a smash hit, or you go away. And I forget who said it in, I think, our Discord or Facebook, but this made them worried about Sony's plan to have 10 live service games before 2026.
They might release 10, and at the end of the day, they'll have one. At the end of a 3-year run or 5-year run, they'll have one. Yeah,
especially like, what are they going to determine as a hit? What is going to be their number that they want to hit every month? Are they going to look at it like, the Last of Us TV show, where it's like, okay, the ratings keep increasing, but like eventually those ratings will plateau, and it's going to be up to like HBO to decide, like, are we comfortable with this number to staying where it's at? And we're going to get that with the games, where I'm sure there was a dedicated Knockout City player base. Rumbleverse, I'm still able to find games within a minute, but the numbers aren't growing. So when you get Sony hopping in there with potentially new IPs, like we'll see what they're willing to take a hit on, or what number they're going to be satisfied with.
And I don't even think because again, I like the one that I'm consistently been playing, and I've been playing for 8 years. Everybody knows is Destiny, and Destiny has its peaks, has its high peaks, like when an expansion comes out or some secret mission comes out. Similar but not the same to when Fortnite has a live event. Like their numbers go astronomically through the roof, obviously like exponentially higher than Destiny. But Destiny knows what its consistent line is and what it's going to be. When they fall below that line for X a number of weeks or for a season, that's when they start reevaluating and figuring things out. But for the most part, they have a floor. And they very rarely have gone below that floor. No matter how good or bad the game is, they haven't gone below that floor. And now, is there stairs in the floor? Sure. Are they spiking all the way up to where it's like a 45-story skyscraper? No. But, they, whether you like it or don't like it, they hold a consistent player count throughout the year.
Well, what I can think it comes down to is just management around those downtimes. Like, how good is management of keeping the ship right?
Communication.
Yeah.
Of what's going on, like I guess you were an avid Overwatch player, and I was going to use Overwatch as an example as well, as because Overwatch is somewhat, for a while there was holding a concurrent player count, whether there was 1 or 2 early on. They weren't having ridiculously high numbers like they did at launch, and then everything kind of like where it settles into the reality of like what's going on. Okay, like all the hypes around the game, it's on it's being talked about on national news or whatever, and then everything kind of now everything's gone, everything kind of plateaus and settles to where it's supposed to be. And then if it's not where they want the settle to be, that's when they freak out. But I believe Overwatch, at least during their heyday, they were very, very good on communicating about their balance patches.
Yeah, they had the people in charge that were communicating. And
Destiny gives you a weekly update about what's going on in the game. Multiple as we're getting closer to launch, you're getting multiple blog posts and community managers on social media communicating like the multiple things that are going on, what they're working on, what's happening, small little changes just to like. And I roll my eyes at some of this stuff, but they're doing the right thing because I'm seeing it. Like more players that haven't played in 6 months are signing in or messaging me or asking me what's going on because it's showing up in their feeds. My question, a long form question for you is like, did Rumbleverse have this kind of communication? Because ironically enough, one of the guys who set the standards for Destiny's communication was on the Rumbleverse community team.
Well, yeah, so they were communicating with like the audience space, but I think it's they were going after a small niche thing, and they were hoping potentially to break out of that niche. And I don't know if it was Epic Games being like, hey, this isn't working for us and we just don't want to waste time even though we have infinite money, or if it's Iron Galaxy. I think a couple podcasts I listened to last week were saying like, hey, what if Microsoft came knocking again, is like, hey, you guys ready to do Killer Instinct for us? And they're like, shit, okay, yeah, let's get this going, because they're not a gigantic studio, and maybe they had to shift to something more profitable. So it kind of comes down to, like, when I was talking about management, I was just thinking about management from a dev side of like, when things dip, they don't panic and go crazy like we see in Overwatch 2, where numbers started to dip and they're throwing everything at the game, and a lot of those decisions are wrong decisions, which is just making them bleed out more. So like when it comes to Rumbleverse, there could have been many factors in terms of like, hey, we're a small studio, so we can't consistently put in this work every season if the numbers aren't growing. And that could definitely be a reason for knockout.
Or they didn't fully understand what the scope of that work was, like until they really had to do it. Like, this is not, I would argue, and this is just my perspective, just from what I've seen and what I've read. I'm not saying this is fact. This is just me. I would argue that, as an example, development of Destiny for the last, and again, I keep Destiny, Division, whatever you want to do, Overwatch, whatever example, even Fortnite, whatever example you want to use, is harder day in and day out than making Last of Us Part 2.
Well, because of how quick you need to move with stuff and be reactionary, it definitely can be more challenging. I would say
the game's out. Like that, you're adding another layer every single time onto a game, and I've seen it happen in Destiny all the time. It's like a gigantic Jenga tower, and they put one more piece on the top, and it's starting to wobble a little bit, and they've got to refix the base. Versus, again, Last of Us, God of War.
Well, I think
any of those.
I think it's apples and oranges.
It's apples to oranges because it's two different versions of development. But for the most part, there are some people that when and again, when whoever did the art direction for Last of Us Part 2, once he hit the part to where Druckmann or whatever was like, okay, great, that's exactly what I need. Okay, you did Seattle, you did this encounter, you did that, you did all that stuff. Okay, we're good. Thanks. And that's unfortunately sometimes that's when we hear about the layoffs, or he starts moving on to concept art for Part 3 or whatever Naughty Dog's next game is, where he or she is doing some other stuff. Versus the Destiny art director has been doing something in the game for 8 years, whether it's reusing assets, redoing something else.
And I think again that comes down to like how you're managing your team, to where like how Bungie has structured itself, they can handle that 3-month period where their numbers drop to all-time lows. Of course, we don't know what that all-time low is, because,
right. Yeah.
But, you would imagine finances change drastically when your player count maybe chops into half. But those people will be back in 3 months, so you just know how to, like, keep the ship from sinking during those periods. And then we go to smaller studios like Valen Studios or Iron Galaxy, to where it's just like, this is
or bigger, 343.
Or 343, to where it's just like we don't have the management to handle this, and then when it comes to like 343, it's just like for whatever reason we don't have the finances to do this. Yeah.
And I also feel like the player, I know we've talked about this, and these lines are starting to blur a little bit, but the hardcore PC player that's commonly okay with signing in weekly and daily and monthly and seasonally, they're good. They're learning, and they're comfortable with this. They've played subscription-based monthly subscription games for years, where they actually pay a fee, and doing this on consoles, like these companies over the last 6-7 years, since like 2015, 2014, that have been trying to do this thing of like, I, again, going all the way back, like I didn't know what at the time, like 7-8 years ago, like what a weekly or daily reset in a game was. Like I never did that. I played a game, and I played some multiplayer stuff. I played like Killzone, and I played Battlefield, but that didn't have like daily resets or whatever, or weekly resets or full resets of your game. And I think that those lines have blurred a little bit. But like, was Rumbleverse on PC?
Yeah, it was an Epic Game Store exclusive. Right.
Okay, yeah, that's right. But I think that like consistently getting that engagement is a challenge, and it's what I've been talking about for months since we've been hearing about this factions game. Like, using the example of creating Destiny is arguably harder to hold that consistent player count. Destiny, Division, Fortnite, whatever you want to call it, versus Last of Us. That's what my huge fear is for Naughty Dog making this factions game or whatever this is going to be. Is like, they've never done this.
But my only worry about that, I think Naughty Dog can make something great no matter if it's a single player or multiplayer. They've made multiplayer games before, and they've been pretty damn good. Original Factions and the Uncharted multiplayers have been good. They haven't done live service yet, and that's the fear.
6-7 month time frame.
Yeah, and my only concern...
less time than Knockout City. Yeah. Less time than Rumbleverse.
But my concern with it is the player count chart that Sony's going to be pointing to, of like, this wasn't worth the development time.
Especially if Jim Ryan's expectation is that to sell mega blockbusters, like 15 million copies, like which means that he's going to think about factions and amount of money and the talent that Naughty Dog have, trying to hold, like, I don't even know what the number is. If you're trying to hold 1 million concurrent player count daily, weekly, monthly, that's absurd.
Yeah, but again, you look at Fortnite, you look at Counter-Strike, you look at Overwatch, and they were having several million, active players. And it's going to be a question of, like, factions of, like, what number does Sony want? What number are they comfortable with? And also, are they going to be satisfied if that number just kind of evens out and there's no month-to-month growth? Are they still going to want to put time into it? Especially when they talk about having 10 games out within, like, 6 years. That is worrisome, because those games will start to cannibalize each other. They will start to eat at each other, regardless of what genre they are, because there's only so many like multiplayer games that people can play at one time, and they're not giving up Call of Duty Warzone, and they're not giving up Fortnite.
Destiny, Overwatch, Fortnite, like any of those games.
They basically just are going to squeeze factions in there and hope it can take a little bit from each section, but it's going to be.
I mean, the only thing is that we believe, we know from sales figures that Sony does have the payroll to support a downtime and say, okay, nice attempt at this season's content or this season's theme, that didn't work. So let's learn, let's adjust, let's evolve, and let's do something better next season, and then better the following season, so that we can continue, we can get back to where we want to be.
And one thing that will probably benefit Factions is it will be the first live service game from Sony, and it almost makes it bulletproof in terms of like, even if it does bad, they can't shut it down, because then if they shut it down, the next game they put out, people are going to be like, well, I'm not going to get into that because you're just going to shut it down like you did the last one. So like,
and Iron Galaxy's next game can't be a service game because people are going to be afraid to invest into it.
Yeah,
like it's got to be
6 months.
Yeah,
like,
it's got to be Killer Instincts at this point in time, even as just a stopgap.
Yeah, and that will probably benefit Factions of just like, hey, you can't shut us down because it's going to put a bad taste in people's mouths when you're next on games as a service, especially if they go down the trend of like, yeah, we tried 4 times, failed, canceled. But the 5th one hit, like that's unlikely because you're going to be losing some of that market each time.
I mean, my only concern from Naughty Dog's perspective is that they have been, obviously controversial on some of the stuff that some of their decision making they've made in their games, whether it's character development, character interactions, whatever. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole at this time, but it's something like they really can't take those high end risks in a service game. Like they can't have a plot point that, I mean, they can, but they can't really relish on it because there could be something where, again, I don't want to go down this, but if somebody saw something in Last of Us Part 2 that bothered them enough that they stopped playing, they still bought the game. If something happens in Factions that makes a player stop playing, and it's in the free-to-play market, or makes hundreds of players or thousands of players stop playing because of it, whether it's a balancing choice, a story choice, a development choice, a UI choice, whatever it is, that can be detrimental to where that sometimes you have to reverse.
Yeah, but that's something that live service games have to deal with all the time. So it's just going to be a matter of how.
But a lot of them play it safe, and a lot of them get criticized for playing it safe, but they play it safe and the players stay there. The players stay.
Yeah, Fortnite's broken their game several times just by adding new characters into their game. So like, but
that's different than a functional change.
Destiny is one of the most like disgruntled communities out there, but they still fucking stick with it. Like, there'll be 2 bad years of Destiny content, but they'll stick around. But it's about building that trust before you can start taking those risks to build that base.
And Naughty Dog has taken tons of risks in their single players, and most of them have paid off for them in a way that's been good. Whether any press is good press for a single player game, but like
the only thing I would say would also would be in their favor is they took risks with the game, and for the most part, I would say it paid off in terms of it sold a certain amount, it gained all of its Game of the Year awards, and then the show is also taking similar risks. And it's paying off, and they're building an audience there to where by the time Factions comes out, The Last of Us, I feel like, is a certified like IP in terms of like, hey, there's all these different things that are going to be funneled into this, and then it's just going to come down to, is the gameplay fun? Like, they'll be able to take risks because they
100%. I agree, but do you think the people that have played Last of Us, whether it's Last of Us 1 or Last of Us 2, could you see them saying, hey, check out this multiplayer world?
Yes, because everyone that I know that played the first Last of Us really enjoyed the multiplayer and were very upset that the second one didn't have multiplayer. So I think there's people from
we've seen it. They were upset about the remasters on PS or the Uncharted Legacy Collection not having it in it. Like, we've seen that conversation. I just hope that conversation turns into a high concurrent player count. And
it possibly could, because like Last of Us Part 2, you have the people that say like they didn't like the story, but they played it for the gameplay mechanics. So like if they can nail the gameplay mechanics in the second one, there will be, or in the Factions, there'll be people that are willing to deal with whatever story or season pass content's in there.
I agree, but I also know that there's people that have stopped playing Destiny because the way the story's drip fed to them, they don't like it. So that's another thing that a Last of Us player might have a hard time getting used to, of like, okay, come back in 3 weeks for more. What?
Mm-hmm.
That's hard. Sometimes that's a hard pill to swallow.
And that's why we're seeing
in terms of playing a game. Yeah.
We're seeing other games close down. Avengers closed a couple weeks ago in terms of like, we're not making new content, everything, we're refunding everyone everything. I didn't put it in here, but Back 4 Blood's like, we're done making content. There's only going to be the season 1 that wrapped up in January, and we're going to move on to other things, even though they were kind of talking about Back 4 Blood, like, oh yeah, we're going to keep building, on this game, but they realize like, it's hard. We can't do this. We don't have the player base for it. So it's, when it comes to factions, which I realize Naughty Dog and factions, that's like our LeBron James. Like, no matter what topic we talk about, we end up bringing up Naughty Dog.
Well, it's because like it's obvious. Like, God of War sold 11 or 12 million copies. Like, Sony is the juggernaut of gaming conversation right now when they release their single player story driven content. Yeah. And they're there. But all in all, like, there's tremendously large gaps in both of these developers and both of these major juggernauts. Halo or Microsoft can't get its studios to produce solid either content, single player or multiplayer content. Sony's doing fantastic on single player content, but all we've heard them talk about is multiplayer content, and we haven't seen any of it yet. All we've heard Microsoft talk about is studio acquisitions, and we haven't seen anything yet.
And what I was getting to is what they need to do, and what every multiplayer game needs to do when you're going to games as a service, is you need to look at the competition and see what they are doing right and what they are doing wrong. And we've said it 1,000 times every time a looter shooter came out. It'd be like, Dave would be like, oh, that's the same mistake Destiny made in Season 3 of the first game.
And it killed him.
Yeah, and we'll see that consistently, where, like with the last Battlefield game, it was missing features that the previous Battlefield game had. And
that's why the Bungie acquisition cost so much, is because there's going to be somebody sitting, whether it's on a Zoom call or on the phone, and the Naughty Dog team or whomever is saying, hey, we're going to go this route. And the guy from Bungie's like, whoa. No, you're not.
Yeah.
You're not.
No, and what they need to do is, Advent is saying that grinds my gears when that happens, because it's super frustrating, because you're like, this is a problem that was solved already by someone else. Copy them. You copy them for everything else, copy them here. And it's a thing that is going to be a thing where someone from Naughty Dog need to sit down with factions or sit down with someone with Bungie, and not only do they need to say, hey, what did you do right and how we can do that, they need to ask Bungie, like, how did you fuck up and how can we avoid those fuck ups? Because Bungie's not perfect. They have,
no, absolutely not.
And I think studios need to look at the totality of games as a service, in terms of like, hey, Bungie fucked up and they corrected a lot of their fuck ups. Yeah. How do we, make sure we don't fuck up? And then also,
I'm sure that there's 2 notebooks going around here of like things that worked, and it's probably like, exaggerating here, but it's probably 10 or 20 pages. Things that didn't work, and it's probably 1,000 pages.
Yeah, and I would say, if you're Naughty Dog, you ask for that notebook first.
Yeah,
because the other stuff is obvious.
I mean, you want to know what worked, like, okay, how and why did it work? And then they just keep reiterating out what worked. Okay, why didn't it work? Oh, well, we found this out. We found this out.
And then you have to ask them, like, how many resources did you put into correcting that issue? Yeah. And then how can we avoid having to even deal with that? And that's going to be a thing that, like, we always say, like, that's going to be interesting, but like, it's going to be super interesting to see how they build out that roadmap, how they look at the industry.
I made fun of The Division for years, because in one of their state of the game addresses they get like, oh, we have stuff and things planned. I'm like, what did you say?
And you could get away with that like 6 or 7 years ago.
Yeah.
Barely. But now you can't say, hey, we're going to have multiple seasons and then quit after one season. You can't do that, because then people are going to look at Turtle Rock with Back 4 Blood and be like, thought there was going to be season 2.
Well, as a whole, Rumbleverse, Crossfire X, Knockout City, like, this is hurting. There's a company that's getting ready to launch something in 3 months or whatever that nobody knows about, and they're like, God damn it.
Yeah.
Like, they're looking at all this stuff shutting down, not because their idea isn't good, but the saturation of, oh, look, another new free-to-play game, and I tell my friend, like, hey, I'm really enjoying this. Well, yeah, you told me that about Rumbleverse and Knockout City, and now I can't play it anymore. Thanks, dick.
Yeah, and also they're going to look at, like, Knockout City and be like, shit, they had 12 million players at one point, and it didn't work out.
Yep.
You know, our dreams were maybe hitting, like, 3 million players and then writing that out. Now it's just like, no, you need, in the free-to-play realm, in the live games as a service, you need a shit ton of people playing, and they need to be consistent. And we're starting to see the ramifications of, like, it's not a big enough pond for everybody. Mm-hmm. It's a shame.
And the crazy part to think about it is we keep going back to Fortnite or whatever, even Destiny. Accessibility. You can play Fortnite on an iPhone, on an Android, on a Switch. On a mid-level laptop, I think, can still run it. Like, you know, like there are multiple ways to play these, and this is why, circling all the way back to the beginning, like why Factions, one, most likely has to be free to play, and then two, it has to be on PC launch day.
I think it will be.
I mean, they can't fragment their audience to only PS5.
Yeah. No,
like it almost has to run on PS4 also.
And then also, if they're opening up PC, they have to make sure they have that cheat engine shit on lock, because
that's the stuff that I'm not hearing about amongst the Sony stuff. You follow this stuff way deeper than I do. These are the talent acquisitions that we're not hearing about. Microsoft's making them, and they turn out to be terrible. Smilegate's like was supposed to be this elite studio. All these other studios that they're building partnerships with, and you know they still need help with. And people are laughing that, oh look, you have all these assets, but you still need Crystal Dynamics to help you. You have all these assets, but you still need somebody to help you with Halo.
Management aspect that I was talking about.
100%. But those that I'm not seeing on paper the talent going to Sony to deal with this.
So the funny thing
the communication, the ability to communicate balances and to balance patches and to be transparent.
The funny thing is about that, Dave, is anytime we would get news back in like the PS Nation days of talent going to other studios, it was either X talent from Naughty Dog or X talent from Bungie. Leaving to go to other studios, and those were the ones that are making the headlines, and now those are both under Sony's umbrella. So like we're not hearing about those acquisitions because in theory they have those people already. It's just a matter of getting them to meld together to do things. But
they've also been doing single player stuff for 7 or 8 years. Like the world has changed dramatically. The player has changed tremendously.
Yeah, but at the same time, like their single player stuff still sells a lot. So like they're kind of just doing this for funsies and seeing if they can make some money off of it.
Yeah, but the player base knows when you're a toy.
And they will find out real fast if this is going to be the thing, and then I don't think Jim Ryan has any problem. I
just hope we're not looking at a GQ article in September of 2025 when Jim Ryan's like, well, maybe the service wasn't a direction that we should have gone.
We're going to get a GQ article no matter what from Jim Ryan, but or a Wired article. We will get that no matter what. But yeah, to your point, I wouldn't be surprised if like 3 years down the road they're like, yeah, we were fucking with you. We weren't doing 10 games.
It's harder. Crazy. It's really harder than we thought. Like when Nintendo goes, HD is hard.
it would basically be like, we wanted to put all of our resource into 1 or 2 games, not 10, because we just realized that there's not enough people for all these games to be successful. So yeah, that's coming no matter what, Dave. But
it means that it just means that 8 things are gonna fail. Like Sony's going to have 8 things that fail, and how are they going to handle that? Because they really haven't had one thing fail yet.
No, even stuff that you're like, man, Dreams didn't really hit. It's still
didn't fail.
Yeah, exactly. It's doing fine enough for Media Molecule.
Like, and the bar has been set on failure is Halo Infinite, Crossfire X, Brumbleverse, Knockout City, Hyperscape,
Avengers.
Yeah, like I mean, you can go on and on of the list of failures, and then things that didn't fail. Borderlands 3 didn't fail, it didn't succeed, but it didn't fail.
Yeah, this is basically like a first ballot Hall of Fame baseball player who's been a righty his whole life, being like, you know what, I'm a bat left now. Like, this is them switching stances.
Ken Griffey Jr. going, I'm coming back and I'm going to bat right.
Yeah. I'm going to pitch.
Michael Jordan playing baseball was a failure.
Yeah. This is basically it. It's like Sony is Michael Jordan. They're like, I'm gonna give baseball a try. We'll see how this works out. But let's move on.
LeBron James like, I'm the all-time leading scorer. I'm gonna go play tight end for the Cleveland Browns. That's gonna be a failure.
Yeah. If anyone could do it. Let's move on to the next story. It's an update on Dave's favorite topic of the last year, but this is a really juicy update as opposed to the last previous ones. Okay, the CMA, the UK Regulatory Board, has given their statement that they've been promising and the things that they would want from Microsoft for this deal to go through. And some of this shit is very wild. So basically, the CMA says that if this deal were to go through, or if this deal was to go through, let me pull up the exact thing, this would harm gamers, leaving them with higher prices, fewer choice, and less innovation. Specifically, it doesn't like Microsoft gaining a huge advantage in the cloud market, which Microsoft is already leading. That's like the one market that they kind of focused on, and like Microsoft owns, I guess it's like 60 to 70% of that market already, and they're like, if they get exclusives to that market, then it's game over. Microsoft's won the cloud.
Why didn't they stop Sony from buying Gaikai 10 years ago?
Because it wasn't a market at that point, is the problem. So that is something that they're pointing to. So, the CMA has some suggestions on what could be done for them to approve this deal. The first suggestion, Microsoft sells off Call of Duty.
How?
We'll deal with this after the fact, because a lot of this is like a gross misunderstanding of how any of this works.
Yeah.
But this is what happens when like government people.
All right, I'll let you read your points.
Okay, so the first one.
This is irritating to me.
Selling off Call of Duty. So they acquire everything but Call of Duty. Selling off Activision, but keeping Blizzard. Okay? Selling off both Activision and Blizzard and only keeping King, the mobile stuff. Specifically, they mention that because Microsoft said they are mainly doing this for the mobile stuff, King, which is them kind of lying, but this is the CMA calling them out on that bluff. The other one is selling Activision, but keeping Blizzard, King, and Call of Duty. And then the last one, they said they would consider heavily, would be Microsoft agrees to keep Call of Duty on rival platforms and come to long-term deals with those platforms to keep Call of Duty. But they don't like this option because it would require ongoing enforcement to make sure Microsoft doesn't fuck around and break those deals.
It would not require ongoing enforcement.
No, so they don't like this option because
they say yes, 5 years down the road, Microsoft can do whatever the hell they want. They can't get him to come back. The CMA can't get him to come back and be and speak to like, hey, we talked about this. Oh yeah, business needs change.
Yes, and so what they suggested is signing very long-term deals with rivals, but that would also require those rivals to sign off on the deals, which Sony has said they are not willing to do. So, again, I think all of these are very like gross misunderstanding of how things work in terms of like, let's go with the first one, selling off Call of Duty. But you keep Treyarch, you keep Sledge, but you can't make right. And then whoever you sell Call of Duty to, wouldn't they become the market leader? Because who would be able to buy Call of Duty?
No, they wouldn't become the market leader because they couldn't make it because they don't have 10 years of assets that Treyarch like, everybody had. This is why nobody else makes a Madden because they don't have the player scans. They don't have the like. This is asinine that this came from this group. Like this is so. Like, tell me you don't understand video game development without telling me you don't understand video game development.
And even if it's like, okay, you sell Call of Duty and the studios, then Microsoft would be like, that's like 10 studios that we then need to sell with Call of Duty. Who the fuck would want to buy that? Probably maybe EA? Or Sony? And then
what's the cost of it? Like, okay, so then if you try to sell off branches of this, or if you sell off Blizzard, and I don't remember what was the total. Like, what was Activision Blizzard? What was the bill?
$69 billion.
Okay, so $70 billion. So then you sell off part of it, and you get you get $55 billion for it. Are you are the CMAs gonna be like, oh, that's too high? Like you can't. The market's dictated. Like there's a percentage based here. Like whether people believe it or don't believe it, like I do think it is a little bit more about the mobile market than I do think it is about Call of Duty. Call of Duty's part of it. So is the mobile market. The Candy Crush makes more money every year, a lot more money every year than COD does. A lot.
Yeah, consistently. No downtime.
Yeah. So, and who sell, like you said, sell off the IP. Okay, so Respawn, EA buys it, and Respawn tries to make a Call of Duty. Like this is what happened when is this the Rocksteady Batman game or the other WB Batman game? Is this good Call of Duty or is this bad Call of Duty? Like that conversation is awful, and it's just name entitlement.
Yeah. The second one, we'll go over the second one. They sell off the Activision branch. So that would be Activision, Call of Duty, all of those studios. That gets sold off on its own, or it becomes a standalone, completely diversified. Kind of like how Disney didn't buy Fox News. They bought Fox Movie Studios. You know? Partly, I think, because Disney didn't want to have to deal with Fox fucking News, but they basically agreed to, like, we will sell the regional sports network and we'll sell the news network.
Well, they were told to sell the regional sports network by a judge.
Yeah.
Like, and that was dealt with before the merger happened. I don't remember if it was sold by Fox before
it was sold
they
by
purchased Fox.
Yeah, they basically had to sell before then. But
so that means that this deal gets delayed even more because you're going to trust Bobby Kotick to break your company up.
But it also doesn't mean they have to sell. So like when it came to like Fox, I think it's like Fox Nation, Fox News Corp.
Yeah,
that was at least a self-sustaining arm of the business that it could live on its own in its own little bubble and be self-sufficient. Activision did this deal because they're like, we are drowning, we cannot do this on our own. So then you'd be taking Keen, which was keeping them afloat, away from them, and then say like, all right, good luck.
Yeah. Like, and then this is like the only thing, like from a Sony standpoint, the only perspective I can give is like if Sony was trying to sell Sony San Diego, and people are like, oh, we want the MLB license as well with them. And Sony's like, well, no, we're not selling the MLB license. We're just selling the studio. And they're going to be like, I don't want your baseball studio without your baseball game.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. And then one of the last ones is like, you sell off Activision, you keep Blizzard, you keep King, and you keep the Call of Duty IP. But you then, like, what happens to Activision then without Call of Duty? It's like they're the Spyro and Crash studio, but they have 12 developers without.
What market is that? What desire is that to sell off?
Basically, every offer the CMA has said is like, hey, the other option is crazy mass layoffs for each thing, because there's no way like Activision, if they lose Call of Duty, are going to keep 12 studios to work on a Spyro game.
Right.
You know?
It's just, and then the last thing, that agreeing to keep Call of Duty available on rival platforms. They tried.
Yeah, they even said
telling them to go F themselves.
And they made a deal with like Steam and Nintendo of like, we're going to bring, and don't worry about it. And like Steam, Gabe Newell was like, I trust them. Like, they don't need to make a written agreement. I'll sign it still, but they don't need to do it. And then Nintendo is willing to take it.
This is making my head hurt. And then they're telling them like, oh, it's too much control over the cloud market. Like, because the cloud market is a thing now. So you're going to go back and take the iPhone patent away from Apple because their phones are too much of the dominant of the market? Like this is the same thing. Like, you didn't stop this from happening. This merger, this acquisition has to go through. If this doesn't go through, like somebody from Microsoft needs to go, or somebody from Activision, a lawyer at Activision goes, if you don't approve this deal, we're done.
So that was mentioned that they did talk to Microsoft people, Activision people, and Sony people and other industry people, and this is the conclusion they came from that. This isn't final though. They basically, remember that list we talked about like a month ago that Microsoft was like, hey, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. The CMA was basically at the time saying like, legally we cannot read what you're saying until we put out our statement. So if they were being upfront that they did not read the list that was publicly available, maybe they'll read that and say like, okay, this sounds good. And then it's going to be up to Sony to like sign off. But technically Sony doesn't even need to sign anything. Microsoft could just release Call of Duty on the platform and be like, yeah, we're going to keep doing this until you piss us off, and we stop. But
yeah, I know. Can Sony? I'm trying to think of how to word this. Can Sony deny a publish?
Yes, they can, but if it's Call of Duty, you'd be stupid to deny it.
Yeah, because Microsoft would totally just release that email that was sent to them.
Yeah, and also
we appreciate you expressing your interest in publishing a game on our platform, but we regret to inform you that Call of Duty 2027 will not be published on PlayStation.
Yeah, and it would also be them rejecting $1 billion check every year of here's the revenue that you could make. Oh, you don't.
So let me ask you a question that I've seen on social media a lot this week surrounding this ruling. Does Call of Duty need Sony, or does Sony need Call of Duty?
I would say Sony needs Call of Duty.
So Sony needs this, if this deal goes through, Sony needs Call of Duty on their platform.
It's the number one selling game on their platform.
More than Call of Duty needs to be on Sony's platform?
I think so. I think Call of Duty's player base is big enough and loyal enough that you will get a huge chunk of players that will be like, fuck it, I'll buy a Series S.
And we've seen that happen with their deals with back in the day for PS4 when Sony became the manufacturer, or Sony became the partner.
Switched from 360 to PS4,
No, that's a valid point. I was actually very curious on your perspective on that. So you're saying that Sony needs COD more than COD needs Sony?
Yeah, I think the player base is... I mean, it might mean Call of Duty scales down a bit,
But what's a bit? 20%? 25%?
Potentially. But they're owned by Microsoft at that point, so it's they can bleed a little, and then they'll probably sell more Series
But then,
S's.
I would say also, what kind of bump do you get from putting it on Game Pass?
Yeah, that will probably offset it.
You lose 25% of your player base, 30% of the player base. Ultimately, you lose. I don't even know what the number is, but I think they've said 30% whatever is on PlayStation, right?
It might be a little higher, but yeah.
So let's say it's 40%. So then let's cut it in half. You lose 20% of your player base because that 20% chose not to buy an Xbox platform to play it on. But then you get Game Pass and people get access to it that didn't have access to it. So maybe you have a net loss of 13% players.
Yeah. Who bought new hardware and then bought,
right.
Yeah,
no, yeah. I mean that's actually I actually didn't expect you to say that answer that way. So.
I really think it is true because PlayStation makes money off Call of Duty existing on their platform without having to do any work, if that makes sense. So it's very vital. It's number one seller on their platform every time. But yeah, this was kind of aggravating to read because I'm just there's a lack of understanding of what these words mean when they throw this out there. of just okay, you keep Call of Duty, you lose Activision. It's just what the fuck are you talking about?
You want to buy the tire companies? Just sell off the rubber manufacturer. What?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. And just the idea that they're oh, you just keep Blizzard, and it's just have you looked at the news? Blizzard is not doing well. I don't care how much you buy them. Blizzard has iconic IPs, but they don't have a ton of IPs, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And the IPs that are iconic are bleeding right now.
Yeah. So, because it's WoW, Overwatch.
Yeah, WoW, Overwatch, Diablo is...
Diablo, yeah.
Those are the three iconic IPs that they have. Okay.
And then Activision is Call of Duty.
Yeah.
That's essentially it at this point.
Yep. And with a dozen very talented studios that currently just are in the Call of Duty market.
Yeah.
I don't know what happens from here. I still think the deal goes through. It's just going to be a pain in the ass.
Let me ask you one more question.
Yeah.
Do you think that this acquisition purchase will be harmful to gaming in 5 years?
Man, I think it depends on what Game Pass turns into within 5 years. I do think Activision and Blizzard were on their way to failing, despite selling so much copies of Call of Duty every year. I think it might be harmful in terms of the gaming stuff getting smaller, but I think the net positive would be studios survive.
Dude, what are we gonna? We're gonna lose like 20 minutes of content every week when this merger goes through.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, shit, we're gonna have to cut questions this week because this conversation took a good chunk. Yeah, we might have to have a separate podcast of like, okay, what did the UK board? We're gonna know UK board member
lingo.
Names.
Yeah. Can you believe what Jeremy Richardson said?
Yeah. Oh, that son of a bitch. Yeah, no, we're gonna start learning that stuff, and then it's gonna hit the US thing, and then we're gonna be like, oh God, we gotta.
I can't wait to see some of the numbers. Like, if we get stuff like we got from the Apple Epic thing, like, I can't wait.
Yeah, we might literally have Kata come out with like his pockets inside out, being like, we're broke.
Or no, but Kata has to like we got to get a real, true breakdown of player base and money from each platform. Like, I would love to see that.
Yeah.
like and we might be surprised like of what it is, like, ooh, that would be so cool.
We even get CEOs from like the Activision Blizzard side being like, we're terrible people, please take this away from us. But I
just want to see something like a studio with or company with like egg on their face because something has to be like, I'm not saying this is the case, but if we find out for some reason that like something's just crazy, like Xbox players are more apt to make in-game purchases than PlayStation players, and we don't get we have a higher count of PlayStation players, but they hurt us because they're cheap.
We'll get that weird stuff because
I'm speaking super vaguely. Please don't come at me that I think PlayStation players are cheap. I'm speaking like from or it's the reverse, because like you can go back and look at it. It's not a story, but there's a reason that MLB 23 is on Game Pass again. Like, they're spending money. Like,
we might get the weird statistics like per hour Xbox people play Call of Duty less than PlayStation people. And that will be something Microsoft will be like, look, our fan base doesn't even like this shit. Like we might see that. We're going to get weird stuff to come out of this. So there's a couple dates to keep in mind for this. Responses. So the list of remedies need to be in by February 22nd. So Microsoft technically already made this list, but it has to be submitted formally by February 22nd. Responses will then be made March 1st, and then the final report/verdict is April 26th, if it makes it that far. Because Microsoft could just hit them on February 22nd with like something that they disagree with right away, and they're like, shit, you nailed it out of the park, or it could get dragged out to April 26th.
Yeah. And the crazy part is, like, even though this is technically in a judicial system, like, this is a negotiation, and every time the word negotiation comes into my head, I think about something my dad told me like years ago. A negotiated agreement is when both parties walk away from the table pissed off.
Yeah.
So Microsoft's gonna walk away upset. Activision Blizzard's gonna walk away upset, and the judicial system's gonna walk away upset. But in the end, like, there's gonna be a deal done, whether it's more cost, less cost, like a plan to phase something out, or something. But this is gonna end with I predict this is gonna end with the merger going through, but something ugly happening, and I don't know what that ugly thing is.
What I think the ugly thing is like a Tencent coming in and being like, "We'll just buy whatever you don't want," and then it turns into the market being like, "Cool, you sold all these things to Tencent, good job." And
Microsoft sells the single player content of Call of Duty.
Yeah, or they're like. They freak out, they're always scared about like, Chinese companies having access to like the mobile market and everything like that. They'll be like, cool, Keen is now part of Tencent. Congrats.
See, this is what you wanted, right?
We're not as big.
Judges, the CMA is like, shit.
Yeah, you wanted us to sell, so we did, and the only people with big enough bank accounts was Tencent. Like, because all their stuff of like either sell it off, it's like there's not many companies that can afford these sell-offs. There's a reason why Microsoft paid $69 billion is because they were at the time or the ones with the money to do that. But yeah, all right, let's move on to the Nintendo Direct.
Sorry. That just irritated me. Sorry.
I know. It's when I was reading that, I was just like, "Am I misreading all of this?" And I totally still could be. But you read the same stuff I did, and it was like, "What the fuck?" Okay, Nintendo, they had a direct and
A long direct.
40 minutes.
Yeah.
And in the Nintendo fashion, they only gave people 1 day warnings of like, yo, we're doing a direct tomorrow, and we got it. And I would say this was a pretty damn good direct. I'm just going to go through the bullet points that I put that I think me and Dave would be interested in. Therefore, hopefully you all listening are interested in. But Pikmin 4 is coming July 21st.
This looked really cool.
It looks fantastic. Perfect summer game.
Owen loves Pikmin as well, so he was like super excited.
Yeah. And I think the time period,
he can't get past day 3 in Pikmin 3, but
he loves playing through those first through.
Yep.
But I think this is like a perfect summer game. So like this coming out in July just feels like the right move for this. Samba de Amigo Party Central's coming this summer. I haven't had to say that franchise in forever.
This looks like a Michael game.
It definitely used to be. Like this is an old Sega game. Definitely.
This is that rhythm game, right?
Yes, yeah, it's a rhythm game.
Okay.
So that's coming out this summer. Everything mentioned here is basically listed to be the first half of this year. So you're going to hear summer a lot along with dates. Dead Cells Cross Castlevania is coming out March 6th.
Is this a separate game?
Yes, I believe so. It's like an expansion separate game thing.
So is this still holding to... I mean, I know we don't know a ton of information about this, but one, do you know, is this only on Switch?
I believe at launch at least, potentially, yeah.
Okay. And then 2, is this still Rogue?
What do you mean?
Like instant, like death, start over?
Oh, I don't know how deep it goes in terms of did they just transplant Castlevania into Dead Cells, or if they just were like, hey, we could do side scrollers. So actually, I'm not
because it looks amazing.
As soon as I saw this, I was like, this is a Dave.
Yeah, this looks amazing.
Game. Yeah,
I played Dead Cells and I enjoy playing Dead Cells. I just don't like when I die in Dead Cells. Similar to I don't like when I die in Hades, but I also haven't given Hades enough time to...
But if they put that Castlevania paint over it, you might be more tolerant. Like, you might tolerate it a little bit more.
Maybe, but if I'm playing for 3 hours and I die because like my dog like bumps me or Owen distracts me, I'm gonna be pissed.
Yeah.
I said that right, like the rogue, right? Like what is it, like rogue-like or rogue?
Yeah, rogue-like.
Yeah.
So that's coming out March 6th. Ghost Trick Phantom Detective Remastered is coming out this summer. I notice there's always like a theme with these where like you'll just get a bunch of one genre each direct, and this direct's theme was detective games. So Ghost Trick Phantom Detective Remastered coming out this summer. We got Disney Illusion Island coming July 28th.
Do we know how that game's doing?
Which one?
Isn't it Disney Illusion already out?
No, that's Dreamlight Valley is like their Animal Crossing game.
Okay.
That one has a very passionate base. I don't know if it's like a big player base, but the people that are into that are like the Disney freaks, and they fucking love it. Okay. But yeah, this is just like a platformer with the current like iteration of Mickey Mouse, Goofy, and Donald.
Yeah.
Something that's going to be a theme for this Nintendo Direct, demos hitting. Octopath Traveler 2 has a demo that's hitting today as we're speaking, so it's available now as you're listening to this. And your save file from the demo will transfer over to the full game. Sarah was very excited for that.
Have you or have you not already clicked download yet?
I haven't, unfortunately. Like, I literally... There's so many demos that I'm downloading tonight, it's kind of ridiculous.
You're just going to click, put it on a charger, go to bed?
Yeah, basically. My internet's pretty fast now, though, so I might be able to at least get, like, a couple games in today. Different games in today.
Yeah.
Sea of Stars has a demo out today, and it has it comes out in August. Advance Wars 1 and 2 Reboot is coming out on April 21st. This is the game that was going to release last year, but then Russia invaded Ukraine about a week before the release date, so they ended up just pushing it back. So this game's been done for quite a long time, and it's finally being released April 21st. So good time for that to come out. Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe is getting a new epilogue, and there's a demo out today. So that looks good.
I think I missed that there was a demo. Owen was talking during this, so I'm actually surprised that he didn't ask me to download the demo.
They kind of just because the Rex moves kind of fast, so he might have dismissed that. But yeah, it's gonna have a new epilogue in it, so that's pretty exciting. I'm gonna probably download the demo today. Thing I was really happy about, even though I've been repairing Game Boys and Game Boy Advances, so it's kind of like, why am I repairing all these?
This is cool.
Yeah, so Game Boy and Game Boy Advance games are coming to the Nintendo Switch Online and Expansion Pass starting today. So hold on, I gotta click on the story just to show, just to say.
While you're doing it, when they showed this, I was like, when they just showed like the little Game Boy screen on the Switch, I'm like, that's kind of perfect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, and then they have the different filters, so you can
different color things. Like, my wife saw regular Tetris and she's like, ooh.
With online play, which is kind of cool. All right, so the Game Boy games that are launching today: Tetris, Super Mario Land 2, Legend of Zelda: Link's Awakening DX, Gargoyles Quest. I was very disappointed it's not the Gargoyles that I know. Game & Watch Gallery 3, Alone in the Dark: The New Nightmare. I did not know this was a game on the Game Boy. Metroid 2, Return of Samus, Wario Land 3, and Kirby's Dream Land. So these are the Game Boy games, and they're available on just the regular Nintendo Switch Online.
Which you have if you play online at all, by the way. So.
If you have Expansion Pass, you get access to Game Boy Advance games. And these games are Super Mario Advance 4, Super Mario Bros. 3, WarioWare Inc., Mega Micro Games, Kuririn, I believe, Mario Kart Super Circuit, Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga, and The Legend of Zelda: The Minish Cap. So those are the Game Boy Advance games coming. They did also announce that like F-Zero Max, Golden Sun, Metroid Fusion are coming in the future for the Game Boy Advance stuff. But
the expansion pass is looking better and better every 3 to 4 months.
I was looking at it now today of just like, shit, I could just upgrade my last 3 months and enjoy some Game Boy Advance games on the Switch.
It's looking because they did something else a couple months ago too with the they announced some other marquee titles like
the N64 stuff. I mean, GoldenEye just hit a week ago.
Yeah, so I mean, it's the value itself is growing exponentially. So in the order of the services now, based on this information today, I feel like Game Pass is 1 for me. This Nintendo expansion thing is 2, and then PlayStation Plus extras, or Plus extra, whatever the other
Plus and Premium,
whatever it's called,
or
Premium,
Essentials.
The other names, the outside of the base tier PS Plus is kind of number 3 right now.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you the last time I downloaded anything that isn't just from the base PS Plus.
Right.
But yeah, I was super excited, even though I've been messing with Game Boys and Game Boy Advances the last couple months. I just repaired another Game Boy last weekend.
It's still nice just to play it on your Switch and to play it on the TV if you wanted to.
I don't want to spend $80 on Metroid Fusion, to get the cart. So I'm happy about this.
Well, this also lowers that cost of that game probably because
it does
the price of it should go down some because it's more. Why would I pay for a cartridge when I can play it digitally on my Switch whenever I want?
Yep. And so this helps out that market as well. This looked good, and it looks like they put online multiplayer into some of the games that could use it, which I love when they do. Even though sometimes it's duct taped together, but it's still
an option. It's still a thing.
It's still an option.
Something is better than nothing.
Exactly. I love the filter options that they put in it, so you can get the right look for it. I hope it's a little bit better.
When they turned the colors on, it looked a little wonky.
Yeah, I was going to say, I hope they did a better job than with how the N64 stuff launched. N64 emulation launched pretty rough, so I'm hoping this is a little easier for them to do, and it works out better. But definitely great to see them. And then the fact that they dropped it today.
Are we going to get, prediction-wise, and we'll go over the last couple bullet points of this, over under the next 12 months, GameCube games being added. Announced, at least. And over under next 12 months. So that's going to happen in the next 12 months or after the next 12 months?
I think GameCube is what you launch the next platform with.
But they just came out and said they have no intentions of releasing a new platform.
I think they're goddamn liars.
Okay.
I think that.
No, Evan, I agree that DS is next. I agree. So I'm saying DS is probably 6 to 8 months. I'm just saying when does Nintendo say GameCube games on expansion? Over under 12 months.
I would say over 12 months because I really think they'll probably line it up with like you can only play.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think they'll be like you can only play the GameCube.
I agree it's
so.
over. I agree it's over. But it's next because like you can get Super Nintendo games on there, right? You can get 64 games on there.
Yeah.
So like you get Game Boy games, Game Boy Advance games. So yeah, you got the DS. The problem with the DS is on the Switch is that if you're playing it in handheld, I don't know if I want split screen on my handheld.
There's ways to do
sounds like
it.
I know there's ways to do it. Don't get me wrong. Putting it in, well, no, you can't even do it that way. Like treating it like a Wii U tablet. But like you can't do that because it has to be plugged into the dock to put on the TV. So DS is harder than people think.
So DS emulation on PC is pretty interesting because people have found different ways to get it done. So DS stuff I think will happen. It's just going to be a matter of like which avenue do they plan to take care of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think the GameCube stuff, I think they'll just use it as a selling point because we'll get about how they make decisions based on finances a lot. But yeah, the next one, Metroid Prime Remastered, is out today digitally, and physical release is coming February 22nd. This is another game has been reportedly done for like 3 or 4 years, and they've just been sitting on it. Apparently the whole trilogy's done and remastered, but looks like they're going the route of just releasing them individually, but it is available today. So this is a remastered of the GameCube games. So this is also one of those games, super fucking expensive. You want to pick it up on GameCube, you have to spend a lot of money to get it. Now you'll be able to get it digitally on your Switch, and then a physical copy is coming to the Switch February 22nd. Dave, you're kind of the Metroid person. I know you're probably not going to pick it up, but like,
well, actually, what I'm looking for right now, I mean, if I'm playing anything on Switch, I'm buying it digitally at this point in time because Owen tends to lose stuff. I'm trying to see if I can get a link to just the Nintendo. I'm trying to see how much this is going to cost.
Yeah.
So you can go on to the next thing. I'm literally Googling.
Yeah, I'm Googling it now because I'm just like, there's got to be. See, now we're going to get dead air because I'm like, I need to know. $40.
Okay, yeah, I'm buying this. So
yeah, you're like, yeah.
I'm buying.
Yeah, $40. I'll probably wait for the physical. I might still buy it digitally and buy it physically because I don't think they're going to keep this game in print, and I'm a weirdo.
I don't care about cards to that point with something like this because I typically only I might try to go out of my way to stream something like this on the Switch for you guys, like I just said at the beginning of the show about streaming, but or lack of streaming. But most of the time the Switch goes with me when I go somewhere that like car ride or like I can't really pack up my PlayStation and I don't want to remember to bring cards.
Yeah.
So.
And I like to just have the physical copy on my shelf as a backup.
Okay, Josh.
Yeah. Hey man, they broke me when they said they were going to shut the PS3 store, and then we had a news story because Xbox let it slip that like, hey, we're shutting up the 360 store. Oh wait, JK. Yeah, that is probably something I'll double dip on. Master Detective Archives, Raincode. This is from the Danganronpa creator, another detective game. Looked pretty interesting. That is coming out sometime this year. We got a teaser for probably the only thing that might be second half of this year, but Level 5 is working on a new Professor Layton game. I'm assuming this is the thing that Angela was like, that looks interesting.
She was like, oh my gosh. She was actually like talking about it, and then she's like, it ended, and she goes, what the hell was that?
Yeah, it was literally Professor Layton just turning around and being like, you missed me?
Because she saw the top hat, and she sat up.
Yeah.
And she was like most of the time she like looks at something at the screen, putzes on her phone a little bit, and then she's like, the heck happened? I was like, that's Nintendo.
Yeah, they just wanted you to know that they haven't forgotten about Professor Layton. So that's cool to see Professor Layton. I mean, if you're gonna do detective games, if that's gonna be the theme,
Advent, you and my wife are vibing the same way because she sat up so fast, and then she's like, "What the heck? Like that's crap! Like why would they not say anything?" And I'm like,
Yeah, and it's coming from Level 5, which is good to hear. It's not being handled by another studio. So yeah, I was super excited for that. That's like a classic DS time growing up, was on Professor Layton. And then the last thing of note, Legend of Zelda Kingdom of Tears or whatever, Tears of the Kingdom, got a new trailer. And then we also got word that it's going to be $70.
But you have on here the game will not cost $70.
Oh, sorry, my bad. The game will cost $70.
Okay.
My bad. Yes, Nintendo is charging $70 for this game because
Nintendo.
Yeah. I was gonna leave it dead air, just like because they decided
that's the going price for a AAA game, and Zelda's a AAA game. If not, Zelda's in that new 4A crap that they're calling.
But basically, Nintendo's like, well, they can do it. They have reasons that are justifiable, but we're gonna do it too because fuck it, basically.
And the collector's edition looks cool. The Link amiibo looks cool. Like, I don't really get too much into amiibos, but this stuff looks really cool. Yeah. It's right around my birthday, so Angela's like, well, that's easy.
Yeah, the justification...
It's like the day after my birthday.
Yeah, the justification here they didn't really go into, but you can imagine it's like, hey, games are expensive, this takes a long time. It kind of rubs me the wrong way, because it's just like, I know this game's going to run like dog shit on the Switch, because the last one kind of ran bad on a Switch from time to time. So, I both get it and I don't get it at the same time in terms of like why they're raising the price, but it still looked good. Good trailer. I think we tend to talk about this. Are you done seeing stuff of this game? I think I'm done.
No. Well, they don't really show a lot.
I know,
there's always more to it.
I'm fine with that. I think I'm at this point. I'm good with what they're showed.
I think that they need to show. I think they need, like, we're going to have a direct dedicated to it. The collector's edition is $129, and it's already sold out on Best Buy. Damn it. So, but I don't really have a problem with this. So,
yeah,
like with them, they're going to do it. Yeah, like I said, they're going to do a direct dedicated strictly to it.
Yeah. So from what it looks like, so last night Nintendo basically pulled all of their pre-orders of first-party titles off every major realtor because all those pre-orders were for $59. So it seems like first-party Nintendo games are going to be $70 from here on out.
Yeah. So on Wario's Twitter, yes, Advent. On Wario's Twitter, The Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom Switch is up for pre-order at Walmart, $69.
Yeah.
Best Buy, $69. GameStop, $59. So order it at GameStop.
Yeah, order at GameStop, though GameStop will cancel on you in a heartbeat because they're horrible like that. And then, so Metroid 4, which was announced and nothing shown of it like 2 years ago, those pre-orders have disappeared because people expect now that $70 is going to be the standard for first-party Nintendo games. And I think that's really shitty, but also it's Nintendo. They get away with it. That's just how the market is
Is it shitty because they haven't changed platforms when they changed the price? Is that why you feel that way?
Yes, because their games run like shit on their current platform. So I don't really see the extra dollar value in their games when they run at like 620p on the Switch. You know, like, I understand why games are $70 on a PS5 because they're running 4K and 120 frames per second. The amount of art required for these games cost a lot of money. And then when I look at Zelda, looks fantastic. They are reusing some assets in that game, you know, like, and the game runs at a lower resolution and the geometry doesn't look as good as the other games that are charging $70.
Wow.
But it's Nintendo.
Based on the fact that I can't pre-order a collector's edition at this point in time, it sounds like that the rest of the world does not care how much this game costs.
They don't. People were upset last night when they found this out, but it doesn't matter. It's going to sell. I just think it's kind of shitty to try and do this. And I just can't wait for Nintendo for their next platform to be like, all right, now we're producing 4K 120 frame stuff. It's $80. Yep. You know? But there's nothing we could do about it. It's still going to sell. It's still going to do well.
Everybody hated Skyward Sword getting remastered, and that thing sold like 12 million copies or something like
No,
that.
Exactly. Like, people are going to complain. Like, Nintendo could release this game at $99 and it would still be the number one game for that month in sales. Like, it does not matter. Like, the fan base.
I'm actually surprised we haven't seen a customizable Switch dock or stickers or something like that for Tears of... Yeah.
I think that's what you save for, like, the dedicated direct. Because that's usually when I make those announcements.
All right, so that was a large chunk of news.
Yeah, I might have to just cut the show there.
Yeah. So, but what's delayed? Last of Us Part 1 on PC delayed from March 3rd to March 28th. This kind of like more lines up with when the show ends, right?
No, so the game was going to come out a week after the show ending. Now it's going to be like 3-4 weeks.
Okay, that's weird. There must be something wrong then.
Yeah.
So, all right. We do have some questions. But I don't really think that we have a lot of time.
Yeah, we'll save them for next week.
So I guess the one that we'll pull out of here right now, just because it's been kind of talked about a little bit, and we can touch on a little bit because you were tweeting about it. But Chris H asks, will you be picking up Harry Potter, Hogwarts Legacy? So, ironically enough, I was actually going to talk to Michael about this because we are able, as DDG is capable of picking this game up. So it's kind of a call between him and I, and we're actually having this conversation live if we want to spend DDG's money or not on this. So I don't know, like, what's your feelings, Michael, on getting this game? Because I saw a little bit that you tweeted.
Yeah, I'm kind of still on the fence in terms of, like, I don't know if it's worth the $70 from, like, the actual game standpoint just yet.
Even with all the reviews that are, like, it's doing very well, and people that I know that have played it are loving it.
I know, but reading the reviews, like, there's weirdness in terms of, like, some of the low scores are because of stuff outside of the game's control, and some of the high scores mention, like, gameplay wise not that good, but lore wise really good, and I'm just like, I kind of want good gameplay more than I want good lore. So, like, I'm still kind of on the fence on it, and of course there is, like, the whole, like, J.K. Rowling cloud over this game of, like, do I really want to put $70 into this? With that said,
but okay, so how many Harry Potter books have you purchased?
None, because I came to Harry Potter like super late. Sarah bought the original 8.
Does she feel guilty about buying those books now?
She bought them when she was a kid, and we didn't know any of this stuff.
Does she feel guilty about purchasing those books now?
No, because she bought those before.
So why would you feel guilty about purchasing a game now that you've already supported the platform?
And I completely understand that, but it's definitely something now that I have the knowledge of the situation.
But didn't J.K. Rowling's already get paid for this game to be made? Didn't they go, here's your check? Like, didn't she already get...
Yeah, no, and that's where, like, I get into the stuff now to where, like, I'm disappointed with how the gaming industry and, like, how fan bases have treated this situation, to where, like, okay, if you don't want to play the game because you don't want to support Harry Potter, fucking perfect. Do that and
keep vote with your wallet, keep your mouth shut, and don't say anything to anybody else that plays it.
Yeah. You can go on Twitter and you can say, like, hey, I don't support this game, and here's why I think you shouldn't support this game. That's fine. Where I have issues are the people that are, like, making Reddit threats targeting anyone streaming the game. Or
if we buy this game, I'm streaming this game. And if somebody comes into my chat and says something about me buying the game, I'm kicking you out of my chat.
No, and that's the problem I'm having is just, like,
let me have fun.
Yeah, and that's ultimately what's frustrating about this. It's a stupid wizard game. It's a stupid wizard game. Who gives a shit? But I totally understand being upset seeing this game succeed. But I also want to tell people, by doing this stuff where you're going out of your way to talk about this game and to attack this game, you're falling into the trap of this game.
Yes, Curry, I agree.
This game on Steam before it released hit 1 million views on Twitch.
It broke Twitch's records for day one concurrent.
And a good chunk of those people that help it break that record were there to tell people that they shouldn't be looking at this game, therefore platforming the game further. And now this game is
like, tell me how you don't understand how engagement works without telling me you don't understand.
And the problem I have with this is just, like, Buster success. J.K. Rowling has so much money that it doesn't matter if this game is successful or it fails, because once you become a billionaire, millions of dollars don't mean shit.
Based on the reviews, the game's already successful.
No, I know, but, like, you know what I mean, where if you've made so much money, like, buying a game or not supporting this game isn't going to make a difference to her bank account. And the one thing that she is probably super enjoying is seeing games media cannibalize itself this week. In terms of, you have journalists fighting journalists, you have fans fighting fans over this shit that she had nothing to do with.
Yeah.
Like,
because like I would ask you, I'll ask you this question, and I want the listener to think about this and answer this in the same way. Like, what is your marquee or your favorite IP right now? Like, of all time, like, not video game, not like what's Michael's number one thing?
No, you're asking
like,
me.
Yeah,
Tony Hawk.
Yeah, I am. Okay, so if all of a sudden it comes out that Tony Hawk is, again, like, I don't even, like, just goes off the rails about anything, and all of a sudden you're like, I don't want to support Tony Hawk going forward anymore. Are you gonna feel guilty about the stuff that you did before? Or if a new skater game comes out that has his name attached to it and plays really well and you enjoy the skating game, are you not buying it because it has Tony Hawk's name attached to it in 5 years?
But I think those are two different things, though. I'm going to say, like, I won't feel guilty about playing the games before because that is in its own bubble. But I will say, if I have the knowledge now that a person is terrible, then I'm not going to support the thing. I think those are, like, two different arguments. You know, okay. Like, you can't go back and be like, oh, damn, why did I buy that before any of this knowledge happened? But I can, with the knowledge now, be like, well, I won't support that person anymore. And that's kind of where I'm at right now. But what I'm getting frustrated with is, like, all the infighting, because if anyone's enjoying all of this discourse, all of this hatred, it's going to be J.K. Rowling. Because they didn't have to lift a finger, and they're watching games media tear themselves apart this week.
And then it trends. And people go, oh, why is this trending? And they look into this and like, oh, what is Harry Potter? And they look into it, and then they buy the book.
We hit the point with Harry Potter now that it's hit the culture war where you have people that don't give a shit about the wizard boy who are now supporting Hogwarts Legacy because they'll own the libs. Like, that's where we're at now, is where we have people supporting Hogwarts Legacy, not because they like Harry Potter, but because it makes a certain group upset. Like, that's where we're at now, and I think that's really shitty. And I also think Hogwarts Legacy doesn't deserve this much attention,
right? Based
off the reviews that I've read, and that's just me just kind of disappointed in the industry right now.
And it also sucks because it looks like on the surface that it's just a really good action RPG, like a good action RPG.
Yeah, I saw, maybe I read too many reviews, so I'm seeing it a little bit more murkier than that. In terms of, like, I'm seeing a very average action RPG, but it also has, like, really in-depth lore that also falls into the same tropes that Harry Potter's fallen into before. So, like, but that's also, like, the knowledge of, like, reading the books and then watching all the movies. So, like, I have that perspective when I read these reviews. But it's just it's so dumb. Like, yeah, Angela said, the same ones that wanted to ban the game for witchcraft are now supporting the game because the opposing side's politics.
Yeah.
Like,
this circles back to the Activision Blizzard Xbox merger too. Like, this is why politics and business can't mix. They just can't. You have to kind of separate the two of them. Like, do you want to enjoy Harry Potter? Do you want to be enjoy Harry Potter in a video game? Do you want to be entertained? Yes. Here. It's here. Yeah, but no, yeah, but here is a Harry Potter video game that you can play.
Yeah.
So go play it and go enjoy it.
And here's my thing. Like, I understand not wanting to support J.K. Rowling. I'm in the same point because buying and promoting the Harry Potter brand feels like you're supporting J.K. Rowling. So that's a judgment call that I'm making on my own of, like, I don't want to pick it up. Even though there's a chance that if it goes on sale, I might pick it up and that might be enough for me to feel slightly better. But also, like...
Would you feel better if DDG bought it instead of Michael buying it?
Well, I also, from a financial business standpoint, I don't think either one of us are going to get close to finishing that game. So I don't think it's worth the investment from that standpoint. Because we've bought games before in the past that either one of us are like, after a couple hours, like, fuck it. And I have a feeling Harry Potter will be that. But, like... I also feel like I was talking about this with Ben in our Discord. I'm like, I'm really good at separating the art from the artist because I like professional wrestling, and I constantly have to separate the art from the artist in professional wrestling. But, like, what would like just constantly bothers me about this is just like, if you don't want to support Harry Potter or you feel like buying it supports J.K. Rowling, that's fine. Don't support it. Again, state your reasons why it bothers you and affects you. And I think that opinion does matter, and you should.
But also
that.
don't. Yep. But also don't get mad when we don't see more licensed stuff.
Yeah, no. But my main thing is, but don't be upset at someone who picks it up and they just want to play the Wizard game. They want to play the Wizard game because the franchise started when they were a child, and it became very formative to their personality and to like their lifestyle, because that's what happens. You read something as a child and it becomes a part of you. So you can't be upset at someone that has a passion for this franchise, because they probably don't give a fuck about J.K. Rowling. They don't give a shit about J.K. Rowling, but they have grown attached to something, and again, they just want to enjoy their stupid Wizard game. And I know I make it sound bad when I'm saying stupid Wizard game, but we're literally fighting.
Yeah, it's no different than saying I want to play a pew pew game. I want to play a shooter. Like
we're literally fighting over a fucking Warner Brother property, and it's silly. And whatever direction you go, J.K. Rowling's already a billionaire, so like, there's more proactive things to do than to witch hunt and stream hunt people, which is what's happening now. It's I don't know. It's frustrating. Super frustrating.
All right, we'll save the rest of the questions for another week. They're not as timely specific. So that is our show for this week. Spotlight, as I mentioned last week, it is on the feed now. There is like roughly about a 2-hour Destiny podcast with myself, Willie, and Wyatt. So we've gotten some pretty good feedback from that already, as well as a couple people directly reaching out to Willie and Wyatt. So, or at least Willie for sure. So I appreciate that. That is our Spotlight. So you can follow us on Twitter. Our main account is @DigitalDaysPod. Michael's account is @TheFirstMJC. Mine is @GoodDaveHunt. Our Facebook group, Discord server, all linked in the show notes, as well as the site for you to listen to the shows on PC if you want to, or direct you to the podcast services of your choice. But more than likely, if you're listening to this, you've already found us on a service. So if you have, please consider reviewing us and sharing us with your friends, so that other people can join and hang out in the Twitch chat and have great conversations with us, as well as our community. Discord's been kind of popping off the last couple of days, last week or 10 days. There's, it's been some cool conversations going on in there, and about stuff and things. to go back to what we were talking about.
Dave points to roadmap.
Yeah. So yeah, check that out. Patreon.com/DigitalDaysGaming, where our fantasy football-like draft thing is. I don't remember. Did I pick the Harry Potter game?
You did, but I also picked Dead Space.
Yeah, so we're they kind of washed to negated each other, I think, because I think they both kind of averaged right now. They're averaged right around the same, aren't they?
I think Dead Space is just edging it just a little, but not by much.
So. But that's a pretty entertaining show to listen to that one. If that and as well as, like I said, getting all the other pieces of content that we've released on Patreon. We do have plans for Last of Us content from the TV show, as well as follow-ups on that draft thing that we keep teasing. So please consider supporting us on Patreon if you're able to. If not, again, sharing, downloading, and reviewing the show are all free ways that you can support us. So we appreciate everyone listening. I hope everyone has a great week. Keep moving forward.
Life's too short to fight about dumb wizard games. Just do what makes you happy. Don't be a dick.